I worked 365 consecutive days. I didn't have a day off. I tell clients that having a small business like that, it's like having another child. You're there all the time. Even though I lived 5 miles away, it could have been 5,000 miles from home.
I wanted to bring you on for this episode specifically because you have the most experience with business ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And having gone through the process of deciding what business you're going to do, actually going through the startup, making sure you got the finances and all this stuff, you get a level of hands-on tangibility with this that no one else has had in the same way. Like I've had
Sure.
work with a lot of digital businesses, but nothing with brick and mortar.
Right.
And so as we're talking about what type of business somebody should start, I guess I wanted to tap into your personal experience with what business did you start and what were the events that led up to that point, and especially in the realm of like how did you come to make the decision and make this huge financial investment into this particular business?
Sure. Well, I knew from the beginning I always wanted to own my own business. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to call the shots, and that was important to me. And in deciding what type of business, that took a while to decide. You try to go with your strengths and your knowledge and what you do, but to me it was also important that whatever business I open up, I want it to be a fun place to work. I want my employees to not come to work. I didn't want them to come to work and say, I hate this place. I want them to have fun. And same with myself. So in kicking it around for quite a while, my wife and I were always very into movies. When we were dating, after we got married, we would go to at least 1 to 2 movies a week, sometimes 2 in one day. And we just loved it. And so I said, the video business was just starting. And I said, let me just keep an eye on this business and see how it's going. There is a lot of research involved when you decide on a business. And what I did was I researched the video industry, and because it was around for about 5 years already, maybe even a little bit more. But what I did find out is that it was the fastest growing industry in the history of the country.
I think there's an important point that I just want to extract from that real quick so we can kind of get these as we go. One is that you were extremely passionate about owning a business itself.
Right.
And so you're coming from a place that I think a lot of people are at where they're like, I just want something, especially after COVID. I think a lot of people are in a position where like, I lived life a different way and I can see myself living my life in the future a different way. I just don't know exactly which way to go.
Right.
And the second really important point that I want to take from that is you and your wife were both like highly interested in movies and this kind of genre or this sector of business. And even with that, you didn't go into deciding about the business based off like just your passion and just your personal interest. You did research, like a serious amount of research.
That's so important. The whole point of owning your own business is basically to make money, of course, be able to support your family, and maybe move up in the ranks in, how much you make, and go from lower middle class to upper middle class. So that is, of course, very, very important. But I wanted to do something that I would enjoy. I didn't want to dread going into work where it's just all about the money.
You wanted your cake and you wanted to eat it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that you can do that with business.
Sure. You pick the business and you decide, if it's for you or not. And I felt it was for me. And so once I decided on what industry to go into, then I looked into whether I should open Jeff's video store or go with a franchise. Right. So then I was doing a lot of research in franchising. And I decided to go with the franchise. And the reason why is because the franchises have a 70% success rate, where if you're not a franchise, and I opened up Jeff's video store, you have maybe a 30% rate of success. And it's tough.
That's a real consideration. A lot of people feel like they're not being true to who they are if they're going to franchise because they're taking on somebody else's name and all of that. But I think one of the important things that you get from it, regardless, and you having the actual experience can tell me whether this is right or wrong. Worst, I guess you could use it as it would be beneficial to view it as a stepping stone. If you really were passionate, you're like, I want to own Jeff's Video Store. Stepping in that direction by purchasing a franchise or I don't even know the right terminology.
Yeah, you purchase a franchise.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so you purchase the franchise and then you own it. You're running it. It's yours. Like, you decide kind of how things go to a certain extent, but you get that hands-on experience in the exact industry that you're trying to go into.
Exactly. Also, when you go with franchising, they train you. Now, I went with...
That's huge.
Right, exactly.
Who's going to train you at Jeff's Video Store?
Right, exactly. And it's also... I like the fact that the franchises were more high-tech. Everything was computerized, your inventory, and I saw that to be a tremendous advantage. Then if I opened up my own little video store, and I doubt if I would have been able to do that right away.
Huge.
And so what I did was, there were two big franchises. There was Blockbuster and West Coast Video. At the time, West Coast Video was number one and Blockbuster was number two. So I decided to go with West Coast Video. And they were based in Philadelphia. I went there for a week's worth of training. And
That is an interesting situation. So West Coast Video was based in Philadelphia.
yeah, they did that because they wanted the Hollywood stigma of the West Coast.
Yeah.
And
Smart. That's so funny.
and
there you go for branding.
exactly. And basically, they very much impressed me. They knew what was going on. I saw some of their stores. I spent a weekend. I took a ride. My father accompanied me, and we went to about a dozen West Coast Videos in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area.
Wow.
And I just wanted to find out if they're doing well, if they like the business, how do they like the franchisor, how they get treated, and all that's important.
Oh my gosh, this should be extremely revelatory. There we go. Yep.
Right.
For people that are coming up, you're giving a very clear roadmap of how to think about your business before you go out and you get your EIN, before you get your LLC, which is I think sometimes people confuse action, meaningful action with just action. It's oh, well, I'm working towards the business, so I've got my business cards.
Right.
I've got the pen that's got my name on it. I've got the website. I've got the LLC. I've got the EIN, and it's cool. Did you do any research? Did you go talk to other people that are in the business? You went out. How many stores did you go to?
About a dozen.
Oh my gosh.
We left on a Friday, came back Sunday night, and I had it all planned, who to go to. I called the owners to make sure they would be there. I told them approximately what time I'd be there. And
all ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you're really taking in the consideration. You're not just showing up hey, I'm Jeff.
Right. Right. And and I found that to be beneficial, especially when they told me that they liked the relationship they had with the franchisor, because that's so important. And now with going with a franchise, it's also a little bit more expensive. Number one, you pay a franchise fee right up front.
Wow.
And that was approximately, and this is back in the 90s, approximately $50,000. Okay, and then the second most important.
Check me on that for inflation rates. What is that today? And what do you approximately what year?
This was in 1990.
90. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
That's okay. And then the second most important thing is the monthly royalty that you pay to a franchise. Okay, people don't realize the royalties. Everybody who owns a 7-Eleven pays a royalty to 7-Eleven.
Is it percentage of sales, or is it just flat you're paying?
Percentage of sales.
Okay.
So I did research on that. What's an acceptable royalty percentage? And anything under 10%. You don't want to go over 10% at that time.
So is this kind of like a negotiation?
No.
Okay.
It's a set thing, and their percentage of royalty was 7%. So I was happy with that.
Oh, I see. Okay, so different franchisors will have different percentage rates.
Right. If you have Carvel franchise or a 7-Eleven, they could be up to 12%.
Right. But
everyone's different.
Got it. Okay.
And
so the inflation rate is about 50% from the 90s till now. Right now I have anywhere between 100 $100,000 to $300,000.
Oh,
And
heaven.
that's money you don't get back.
Yeah, that's pure like access.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to come play. Here's my skin in the game, which is I think is a fair point for everyone to consider
Right.
too.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking about the type of business that you want to start, you know, you have to look if you have several different passions or several different ways that you're leaning, that might be a big indicator. Because if you have passion for like, I don't know, three things, and you're like, oh, I'd love to start, like I think about me. All right. I want to start like a wellness center. Oh, I want to start like an archery camp,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or whatever. And I want to start like a podcasting training course. You're like, okay, how much a good place to start, regardless of anywhere, is like, how much is that going to cost? Like to get it off of the
Of
ground.
course.
And I think that that's not crazy. I mean, it's crazy because it's a lot of money, but I like in my head, I think that I remember looking at, what was it, like a Chick-fil-A or somewhere they had like, do you want to start your own franchise with like a QR code? And I scanned it. I'm like, I'm just curious. Like,
Sure.
what are we talking about? What's involved? This is before I joined the army. And I think it was like 100. And so this would have been like 2009. It was like $100,000. And I looked it up generally. I'm like, oh, that's cheap.
Mhm.
That's like one of the, so maybe it was Jimmy John's. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But like, that's a lot of, you got to come to the table. But it's like, you have to then think about, like you were talking
Right.
about, the relationship, huge,
Mhm.
and every asset and resource that comes with it.
Right.
So you're not just paying to like let you in the door. I mean, you're paying to get you in the door, but like what's on the other side of that door that they have set up, their systems and their marketing and like you were talking about
Yeah.
like the payroll and bookkeeping, like that's huge.
Yeah. You know, when you go with the franchise, there's a lot of things that you don't have to worry about because they did their research, you know, about marketing and stuff like that.
Do they have predetermined locations and like the next one that we're going to open is going to be at this spot and that's where you're
Well,
gonna
not specific, but since it was based in Philadelphia, they were all over the Philadelphia area
okay.
and the Philadelphia suburbs. Then they went into New Jersey and they did the same thing. Next step was Long Island. And when I opened my store, I was the third West Coast Video on Long Island. There were two others already there.
Okay.
And I was in constant contact with those people.
Oh, so you established like a good rapport with them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Because
great.
I figured, you know, we're like teammates in a way. We're
Yeah.
Long Island.
I would figure, I mean, maybe this says something about my personality, but like I would have figured that everyone would have viewed each other as like competition. Like, you're taking my
No,
sales.
they were in towns. Video has a 3-mile radius. Beyond 3 miles,
Yeah, that's a good
there's
point. Like,
another.
who's actually?
There's other stores they'll go to.
Yeah.
So one was in Plainview and one was in Massapequa.
Okay.
So the distance, they weren't going to be rivals. But I wanted to pick their brains because they already opened. And I also wanted to find out who did their build out, the contractor, because I like the way their stores were set up. And West Coast Video recommends the setup. And you also have to buy certain things from them. You buy the racks for the tapes, you buy the carpeting. The store was fully carpeted, and which made it really different from other stores.
Okay.
And I liked the carpeting that we did buy. It was like a dark gray with red stars all over, and it was really nice.
For that, for the with the feeling that you want to give people when they come in,
Yeah.
like that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I wanted to have a store that would rival Blockbuster in size. So I rented in a strip shopping center a pretty large store. And basically, so I can keep up with them because they were the main competition at the time. And there were some within the 3-mile radius that I was competing with.
Right.
But I wanted to be a large store like a Blockbuster, but give the feeling of a mom and pop store.
Yeah.
And because that's what the people like when they come in, where you know them by their first name, where you go to a Blockbuster, they have no clue who you are, even if you're a steady customer,
Right.
because you know they have kids running the place most of the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be like a mom and pop, where they'll come up and ask for a recommendation, things like that.
Right.
So,
Actually building that real rapport and those
exactly,
relationships.
and we were able to do that. I had my father. I retired him. He was a truck driver. It was time where he had to stop doing the physical stuff. So he came on board as my manager during the week, during the days.
Good for
and
you.
my wife came in to work 2 days a week, and Friday and Saturday nights with us, because those are the big nights of the week.
Sure.
So it was a family business. I was 5 miles from home, which was nice, but I was working 12 hours a day and I wasn't getting to see my kids. And that bothered me. So I had them work in the store with me, and they loved it.
There you go. Integrate and bring them in.
Right.
And then they get a feel for.
They were little girls at the time, but
Yeah.
In middle school. So they were very good with the computers. It was
Yeah.
an asset to have them in the store just for that reason.
That's
And
really cool.
and we actually had to build like a bench that they could stand on so people could see them behind the counter because they were so tiny.
That's so perfect.
It really was. And then once you open up, you get a representative from the franchisor who stays with you for a week
Oh, really?
to walk you through it, to help you out. And you really needed this person to do that. When the computers arrived, he helped set them up, connect them and everything.
I mean, it makes sense that they would want to invest that into you and your store because your success is their success.
Right. You know, it's also part of the franchise fee. I wanted to know what I get from you besides the training.
And so that was part of your research was like, I want to know.
Yeah.
How did that conversation go? Were they really receptive?
Very much so. They
Okay.
had it all down pat already where, no, you're going to have somebody who's going to be with you the first week you're open. And it worked out really well in that respect.
That's incredible.
But another thing I did, which I did on my own, there was a West Coast Video in Center Reach, but it was a corporate store. It wasn't a franchise.
Okay.
Okay. And I live right near Center Reach. I'm the next town.
Got it.
So I went in there one time, and before I opened my store, about a month before, and I said, who's the manager? And they introduced me, and I said, I'd like to work here. I'm opening up a West Coast Video in about 4 weeks. I said, I'd like to work here a couple of nights a week for free. I just want the training, get the feeling behind the counter, and they did that.
That's
And
incredible.
It is. And now the manager of the store, I got to know pretty well because I was there for 3 weeks. And I told her, when I open my store, if you're looking for a job, you just come into me. And sure enough, about a month after I opened, she comes walking in the door.
Get out of here.
And she was my manager. She was terrific, really was. She was a young woman in her early 20s. Her day job was a court reporter. And
This is
Yeah.
the best story that I've heard in a very long time.
It was
This is
great.
incredible.
And she was engaged to be married, and she became like part of the family. My kids loved her, and she was great. They loved working with her. I let them work with her all the time.
And those relationships are so important. I guess that's another consideration when you're thinking about what type of business should you start is maybe a practice. Tell me what you think about this. Is doing like a reverse engineering, and so kind of looking at even regardless of the industry that you choose, like how do you see the relationships and how do you see like the business fitting into your life and your life fitting into the business? And how old are your kids? What are your kids going to do? Like how much time? Like you incorporated your kids into the space so that way you didn't lose that family bonding time.
Exactly.
And then you think about, bringing people in, bringing in other employees and like how they're going to mesh and what kind of vibe do you want? Do you want like a corporate, kind of thing? Or it
No.
just depends on your industry?
Right. I wanted it not to be a corporate store.
Right. No.
I'll give that appearance. I wanted it to be like Jeff's store.
And that makes sense
And the
for
fa-
a
and they-
video
and
store.
my
yeah.
family worked there, and the customers saw that. And I was located in Wisconsin, which is part of Smithtown. And the way I had the store set up is that I wanted a specific kiddie section because I knew in Wisconsin, Smithtown, there's a lot of kids. So I had my contractors build a kiddie section where the walls of the section was like a castle. And and we decorated it like it was a castle.
Yeah.
And we even had little chairs in there so they could sit down. And we had some plush toys in there for them, for little kids. And I also made the renting of the videotapes a loss leader, meaning that if the adults came in, let's say on a Saturday night with their 2 little kids, they would send them into the kiddie section, go pick up movies. And if they rented 2 pretty new releases, all the kiddie movies that you take are for free. And
Oh my gosh.
and that
mean,
worked out
that's-
really well.
It's so great on multiple levels because when you go in when like I remember, so there's a lot of people listening that have no idea what we're talking about.
Sure. I guess so.
Because they've never experienced it.
Right.
But I remember that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up inside of Blockbuster, inside of Hollywood Video, and I know how much of a pain in the butt, like me and my siblings can be. There's 4 of us, and my poor parents.
Find a movie that you'll all want to sit down and watch
Exactly.
together.
And
Right.
so, but to be able to have, it's like you almost provided on-site daycare.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story about that. My older daughter, who was in high school at this time, later, a couple of years later, said that she has a project that she has in mind to do, but she wants to get the video store involved. I said, so she explained to me that what she wanted to do was have parents drop off their kids. Well, I didn't say drop off, where we're going to have a reading section. My daughter's going to read a Disney book, and then afterwards they're going to watch the movie. All the Disneys. So, and we're talking like Bambi, all those type of movies. And she would first read the story to them, and they would love it, and then watch the movie. So they were there for a good 3 hours. Now, we started to notice that the parents were just not staying and hanging around. They were dropping the kids off.
Enjoy, we'll be back.
So now all of a sudden we have daycare here.
Yeah, when that
But
turns
it was
into-
okay.
Yeah.
All the kids were fine. The parents were fine. We didn't mind. My daughter loved it. She had one of her classmates who was working on the project with her. So there was 2 of them there. And,
Talk about integrating into the community, finding the needs
Yeah.
within the niches within the niches, right?
And the relationship that we built with the community was tremendous.
That's huge.
It's like they'd come in with their kids. All right, kids, you know where you go. And they go right to the kiddie section, and the parents are looking around for a new release.
Oh my gosh.
And, that worked really well with the community. I got involved with sponsoring a Little League team, things like that. And that's exactly what I wanted to do.
It's like all of the dreams come true,
Exactly.
like to be able to live the way that you want to. Like you said from the beginning, I want to be my own boss. I want to be able to make
Right.
the calls and all of this.
Yeah. But, what you learn so much on the job, though. Even though with all the research you do, you learn so much. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is how seasonal the business was. Now, right away, we thought okay, the winter will be the busiest season. And we thought that's it. We didn't know how busy it gets during the rest of the year. And I was not a good example from when we were renting movies, because we rented all year round no matter what. But in the winter, people hibernate. So they want to watch a movie at home if they have kids.
Mm-hmm.
But what they realized, and this is what happened with the industry, when they first came out with VCRs, it was a luxury to have it, okay? And from my research, more VCRs were sold in the first 5 years of existence than televisions were sold when television first came out.
Wow.
And that blew my mind when I
That's
read that.
crazy.
Yeah, I never would have believed that, but it was true. So I figured, and that's what also made me want to go into that industry. But you're not going to have the videotape that people want all the time when they come in. So what I insisted upon all my employees, and most of them were part-time, is high school, college kids. And basically I said, whenever you work here, I want you to take a minimum of 1, maybe 2 movies home with you. And I want you to watch them. And I'll tell you what movies to take home, because it's homework. I want you to be able to recommend a movie if the movie that they came in for wasn't available. Okay, so, and that's so important. And the kids loved it because they were getting to watch movies for free.
And it would be difficult for them without context to understand like what movies to select is. So you have already got the kind of plan laid out. We're
Right.
like, here's a big hit movie.
Right.
And it's very likely that we're either going to sell out or rent out, and then there's not going to be any left. And so here's a couple of
Right.
alternative options.
And I'll give you an example. Shortly after we opened up, one of the big releases that came out was Bull Durham with Kevin Costner about minor league baseball. And I had 40 of those videos on the shelves. And it's unless you have 41 for that person who's coming in afterwards, they're going to run out to another store. And that's the last thing you want them to do. So I found a movie that was called Long Gone. And it starred, I forgot the actor's name, but he played Gil Grissom on CSI. And it's right on the tip of my tongue. And he had this minor league team. And it was very similar to Bull Durham in a way. It was a comedy also, but about baseball, minor league baseball.
Perfect.
And I loved it. I really did. And I figured my taste is pretty common with my customers. And so I got 2 copies of those. And since it was an older movie, they were cheap.
Sure.
And that was always the alternative if Bull Durham was in it. And you would look for stuff like that. Another big release was Die Hard. That was huge.
Yes.
And
the best Christmas movie ever.
exactly, exactly. So I would find movies like that, action movies with a big star, like Schwarzenegger movies, things like that. And that would be good replacements also.
That would have been right around the time of Terminator, right? Terminator would have been a few years earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
William Peterson.
Yes, William Peterson. That's right. Thank you.
Coming in the clutch.
Thank you. Definitely. And if you watch the movie now, you'll see some people who became stars afterwards. Really.
Yeah.
Dylan McDermott was in the movie, and he's a pretty big star now.
I love him.
Right.
Love him.
I don't know who that is.
We'll show you.
See if I can
But
pull up a picture.
so that movie was perfect for that scenario, and I kept looking for movies like that, and I would insist upon my employees watching the alternative movie also.
That's brilliant.
And so basically, we also, when I would do my weekly orders for new releases coming out, you do it like a month in advance of the release coming out. But my distributor would send me screening copies. So I would get a copy of a movie that hasn't even been released yet, a big blockbuster movie. So I was able to watch
access.
it. Yeah, people were begging me for those, but and I insisted upon my employees to watch that also when we get a new release, a screening copy. Because the last thing I want to do is take a copy that I can rent off the shelf for one of my employees to watch. So I would always give them the screening copy.
Right. That makes sense.
But another thing I started before about the seasons. Winter is the biggest season, but very close behind it is the summer season. And people would think, why? Everyone's outside. But that's not true. Basically, there's nothing on this is before streaming, of course. There was nothing but reruns in the summer on television, strictly reruns. So you're not watching your normal television programs again. And you're home at night, even though the kids went to camp that day or whatever, you want to watch a movie. And the summer was a huge season.
That makes sense. There's more. It's like there's probably more nights of the week because the kids aren't going to school. There's more nights of the week that you're inclined to have kind of like that movie night.
Yeah, exactly. And kiddie movies also, because they found that it kept them occupied for an hour or two,
Yeah.
So it became a necessity to some people because it was like daycare for their kids to keep them quiet in front of the television.
On the on the franchising side, how did it work, like with the videos, when it comes to like kind of the cost ratio and all of that?
Yeah, what people never understood when the video industry was really going very smooth is that a blockbuster release, a new release, cost me about $70. Okay, so you can calculate how long it takes to break even on each tape. Now, if I'm getting 30 copies of something, it's $70 a pop.
It's $70 per individual movie
Copy.
that you have, the copy that's on your shelf. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So
what were you renting them for?
we started out at $2.99, then $3.25, and we topped out at $3.99. The profit margin was very low, and that's something I knew going into the business, but you have to do volume.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's part of the research side, is to
Right,
understand
right.
those kind of
On a
nuances.
busy night, like Friday night and Saturday nights were the busiest nights of the week. If we didn't rent a minimum of 400 movies in that one night, it was not going to be a good night.
Mm-hmm.
So 400 was the mark that we were always looking for.
Did you learn that through your like independent research, or was that something that you discovered when you were going out to all the stores and talking to those?
I independently realized all that. The first thing I wanted to see was how long it would take to break even on a movie.
Right.
And that was important. And for us, it was 30 days.
Okay.
Now, what people would come over to me and say, I can't believe the movies cost that much because I see them $14.99 on your shelf. Some movies come out strictly for rental, not for purchase. And some movies come out for purchase and rental.
Right.
And an example of that was E.T. E.T., when it first came out, And I was dying to get open before E.T. was released on video.
Oh,
because
see,
would've
that
been
was your
huge.
timeline.
And I missed it by a week.
Oh no!
So we just couldn't get open.
Oh, you
in
could have
time.
such a big. I guess you,
Yeah.
like you said though, there's the given that the profit margins aren't huge on those, maybe it wouldn't have been. I don't know.
Well, E.T. was one of the first movies to come out where I was able to get them for $14.99, all copies, because they put it out for sale also. So they can't charge me $70 for the same movie that I have on my shelf to sell for $15. So that movie had a high profit margin.
Yeah.
Okay, so I bought as many as I can. I must have had about 80 copies of E.T., and we sold about 40 copies. People wanted to buy them instead of renting them, and then the rest were for rental. And then once it died down, like 2-3 months later, I would sell them for $9.99 because I didn't need 50 copies at that point.
Right.
So that was another way.
And so that was to
target.
get rid of the stock that you had on hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
And was all of they're all inventory is on site.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's on the shelves. The actual tape was on the shelf. They would bring it up to the counter.
Yeah.
And basically, what people didn't realize with this industry, and I've learned it afterwards from being in business already, is that it's so different from whatever job I had before. Whatever job I had before, I was in the accounting industry. Everything was 9 to 5.
Right.
Here, you get busy from 5 o'clock on. Okay, during the week when people get home from work, and on weekends all day.
9 to 5 to 5 to 11 or midnight or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So during the day, I do my running around, I do my ordering of my videos, things like that. But then when it came 5 o'clock, that's when we would get busy. People were picking up videos on the way home from work or after dinner.
Yep.
And so that you don't realize how busy it is in the evening. Now my store was open from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. So I'd get there at 9 to open up, and then I'd be there till 11 after closing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a long day for me.
Yeah.
And whatever employees I would have, they wouldn't work a full day shift. They'd either work the day or the evening.
Shift work.
So,
Yeah.
right. And then on the weekends, when you're very busy, Friday and Saturday night, I wanted my 3 best employees working. So that was me, my wife, and my manager. So on Friday and Saturday nights, the 3 of us worked together.
Yeah.
And my manager became like another daughter to me. We were in business 10 years, and she was with us for 10 years.
That's another component about the owning and operating your own businesses. You have to consider like your leadership style and approach and how are you going to lead? And you set a really great example in that, you know, if someone's going to be there all day, if someone's going to be grinding, it's going to be me. You know, it's my business. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to make sure that everyone else is taken care of, or like you're on shifts, and then you identify who on your team is, you know, top performers, and then you get them into the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
It's just like a football team.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have to
Exactly.
select
Exactly.
for the right play.
And I would have, during the store was open, we would have movies playing all the time. We would have if you go to a sports bar now, you have the TVs all over the place. We were similar. And I think we were the first industry to do that.
Yeah,
actually.
that makes sense.
And you put on a movie, well, if it's not R-rated, of course, you'd put on the blockbuster that's the hottest movie at that time. So as soon as they come in, they go, oh, can I get that? And we would direct them to the shelves where they were.
Yes, you can.
Right. And another thing that you didn't realize is that the busiest night or busiest day is when it rained. I prayed for rain almost every day because business went up 50%
Oh my god.
when it rained, really.
Wow. Now I'm confirmed I could have never done it. I
Yeah.
can never live a life where I'd hope for rain.
I know, I was conflicted with that too.
Yeah.
Because I like playing golf and outdoor things, and here I'm praying for rain all the time just because of the business.
Yeah.
But, what are you going to do?
I guess that balances out well for you though, because like, it's pretty sunny, it's pretty slow. I'm gonna go golfing.
Sometimes. Yeah, it works out that way sometimes. But I'll tell you, when I talk to a client about starting a business, I look for a couple of things. I look for one, I want to see their passion. If there's no passion in them for that business that they want to start, then you're wasting your time. And I know the passion is the money that they all want to make, but it's not that easy. And you learn more on the job than anything else, really. I mean, my first year in business, I worked 365 consecutive days. I didn't have a day off. and I felt that was important. I had to be there. And then after that, I was able to take a couple of days off during the week, slow days, things like that. You know, I tell clients that having a small business like that, it's like having another child. You're there all the time. And like I
If you're
said,
not nurturing it, it's not getting nurtured.
exactly. And like I said, even though I lived 5 miles away, it could have been 5,000 miles from home where I had my store.
Right.
Because I was there all the time. And like I said, that's why I got my family involved in working at the store. And my wife was always my partner from day one. I had 51%, she had 49%.
Oh, wow.
I didn't want to make it 50-50, and she understood that because I'm there all the time. So I've got to make the decisions most of the time. But I would bounce everything off her because my wife's an intelligent person, and she grew up where her father owned his own business, so she knew what it was like.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That type of alignment. I mean, it's one thing to communicate the crazy demands and needs, but to have a partner that's lived through it and that you're communicating with effectively.
Sure.
I mean, that's going to be one of the key components of
Right.
staying functional.
If I'm not there, I have to have somebody there who I could trust.
Right.
Like even during the day, if I'm running errands or for the store, my father would be there during the day, and sometimes my wife. It was someone I could trust. You know, and that's important. And all the kids that worked for me, they were good kids. They really were. Most of them were friends of my daughters.
Right.
I would ask for them. And Linda, who was my manager, she was the best. She was like a family member already. She took my kids to concerts. She did some. We were at her wedding.
It's
Really.
truly like a family.
It really was. I still stay in touch with her today.
That's amazing.
Really. And this is, I sold the store back in 2000. So this is 23 years ago, and I'm still in touch with her.
Wow.
Really. You build friendships, you know.
Yeah.
She was there for the ups and the downs, and she knows what it was like.
Yeah, I think a kind of theme that I've seen throughout this conversation is you should invest heavily in the front end and educating yourself, becoming familiarized with the industry, with the business, and all of that. But regardless of how prepared you are, you can't be like a stick in the mud
Right.
when it comes to events and everything as they come up. So you have to be aware that business is dynamic and that you're going to have to call audibles. You're going to have to make, choices
Right.
on the fly.
Right. You know, one of the big problems I realized after we opened is that if I ordered, let's say the movie Die Hard, it was a huge success in the theaters, and it was going to be even bigger in video. And I ordered 40 copies of it. Now, I knew how long it takes to break even on each copy. And on a new release, you want every single copy out the door every day. Now, if somebody didn't return it on time, they would get charged for the second day because you prevented me from renting it to somebody.
Right.
And the bottom line is, like I said, it's a product that had a very low profit margin. So quantity is what is key at that point. But God forbid somebody's machine chewed up the tape. Okay, so now I have to make the decision. Do I charge them on the credit card for $70 for the tape that you just damaged, and lose them as a customer, or eat it and then go from there? And that's a decision you have to make sometimes. If it's a really good customer, I'm definitely going to eat it.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. Not all customers are equal.
Right.
That returning customer that's been there and has their kid with them, and you've grown that relationship to stick it to them, then it's like,
if I'm going to charge them for damaging my tape, it's definitely a customer that I wasn't crazy about to begin with.
Right.
You must have given me a hard time at certain times when maybe I charged them a late charge and things like that.
Yeah,
But
pattern of behavior kind of a thing.
Exactly. So that would make my decision really, help me in making my decision. But also, you've got to realize with people, it's a commodity that's $3.99 was my top price after a number of years in the store. To make a customer happy, if for some reason they're not happy, I free off the rental. And there you build some loyalty.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to free off the rental. Or I'll charge them for this rental, but I'm giving you your next one for free. And it would be in the computer, so whoever took care of them the next time, it would get applied automatically.
That's
so, and that's another good thing about going with the franchise. It was computerized.
Yep.
Your inventory, you were able to keep track of everything. It was really good.
Yeah,
you could see the renting pattern of customers, what type of movies they like, things like that. So that made a big difference because the mom and pop stores weren't computerized yet.
Right.
The only ones that were computerized was West Coast Video and Blockbuster.
Yeah.
So,
And so you can see kind of the comparison now is like those businesses that are incorporating AI and large language models into their business flow and practice, and those who aren't. You know, it's like
right.
who's taking advantage of the latest technology and putting it into use for their customers and for their business. So, any last thoughts about somebody who walks in the door and says the same thing that you said? I know I want to own my own business. I want to take control of my life. I want control of my time, even if that means I'm working 100 hours a week instead of for myself, so I don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else. I want that. What do we do?
Right. When I get a client who right away says, so what business should I get into? And I tell them right away, this is a decision you have to make. I said, pick something that you like, you have a passion for, and you wouldn't wake up every morning saying, I hate this job. Even though you own the business, it's still your job. So pick something that you will enjoy doing. It could be just helping clients by being a consultant, or with the wellness right now is a big thing for people, especially after COVID. It's a very big thing. And to me, if you're not going to like being there and you're not making the big bucks at that time, it's not going to work. You definitely have to have a passion for the business. And I want to see that when I'm talking to a client. And that's important to me, or else I tell them, look, if you're not passionate about this business, you're going about it half-assed in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's perfect. I think that's very well put, because there has to be, not every part of your involvement with the business is going to be pleasurable, even when it's something that you love and you're passionate about. But so now imagine extracting even 20, 30% of that passion away, and you're still having to do those things that, regardless of industry, regardless of business, you're going to have to do. You're going to have to keep the books. You know, you're going to have to file taxes. You can get people to do it, but if you offload those kinds of tasks without familiarizing yourself and doing it a couple of times yourself, very easy to be taken advantage of. Right. So,
and you know, with any business, there are issues and problems all the time. In this particular business, it was the customers more than anything, because I had 500 members in my store, and you know, some of them can give you a hard time. Right away, they'll tell you the customer is always right, which I firmly don't believe in.
This is not Burger King, friend.
Right. So people brought that up to me so much that I said, all right, I have to find out who's the person that put that out there. And it wound up being R.H. Macy from Macy's Department Stores.
Oh, that actually rings a bell. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Huh. So to me, the customer wasn't always right, but I'd bend in their direction.
Right.
You know, if they're saying, you know, a customer would come in, one particular person, and he drove me crazy. If he didn't like the movie, he didn't want to pay for it. I said, I have nothing to do with whether you like it or not. I'm supplying you with the movie. That's all. You know.
Take it up with the producer. Take it up with the director.
Exactly.
Like, this is not our conversation.
If we're not a movie theater, if you don't like what you're watching, we're not giving refunds.
Exactly.
That's not our fault.
Even then, it's like, I would have that conversation if they didn't do something about some rowdy folks in there. Like, okay, the experience got ruined. It'd be the same thing for you if somebody damaged a tape, you rewound it, didn't catch it, sent it back out, and they're like, I didn't get the Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back because it cut out. It got you know.
And I would refund. I would not charge them, of course, for it, and give them a different copy and let them watch it at that point.
Right.
Now, when I would have a movie, let's say, like I said before, with Bull Durham and then the alternative tape, I would tell them, because they would never hear of the secondary tape that I'm telling them is very good. And they said, well, I never heard of it. I said, look, if you don't like it, you don't have to pay for it.
Oh, that's cool.
And never once did anybody come back and tell me that they didn't like it, just to get it for free.
Yeah.
So that worked pretty well, too.
That's a good strategy that we'll have to dive into another time, about the power of giving things away for free or making offers like that.
It's a magic word, free.
It's huge.
It really is.
It's huge. Especially when you mean it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
You know, because the worst thing you want is you don't want a customer to come in and walk out without a tape.
Yeah.
And
And that you can apply
Without a
that
video.
across every single industry.
absolutely.
The last thing you want is somebody to walk into the store, kind of look around a little bit and go, all right. You know?
And right away,
Maybe.
we would spot people who would go right over to the new release section and not find their tape, their video, and you could see that they're disgusted.
Yeah.
So that's the person that
How
I'd go
dare
from behind
you.
the counter, right? Well, my employee would point out that person, and I'd go talk to him, and try to see if I can convince him to watch something else.
Yeah.
And more often than not, I was able to do it because otherwise they wasted the trip to the store.
This requires, I love this. I love starting businesses. I love like the psychology that has to go into it, the understanding your customers, who's your target audience, and all those things. And you did it.
Yeah, I run into customers all the time still, and this is from over 20 years ago. And basically, they say they missed coming to the store with their family to come back, pick up videos for the kids, for themselves.
Yes.
They said, even Troy said that to me. He said he really misses that part of it where, with streaming, you don't leave the house, but
Exactly.
they enjoyed going
It turns
out.
in, it's an event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when you can do that in your business that you want to start, once you make that decision, you're like, I'm going to open up a sandwich shop or whatever. You have to think about the experience that you're creating. We got to do a whole video
Yeah.
on
Well, that's
that,
what you were like mind blown with the research that he did, and I'm over here like, there was another video store other than Blockbuster, because that's like, I was born in '94.
Right.
That's when I
Yes.
grew up in the Blockbuster. Same thing, wreaking havoc, going
Yep,
through the
yes.
candy, ripping the things off the shelf,
Yeah.
being like, I want this, and I'm a chronic, still to this day, movie rewatcher.
Yes.
So my mom would hate bringing me to Blockbuster because I'd go to like the same three, and she'd be like, "Oh, Matilda again," and I'm like, "Yep,
I had so many
yep,
customers
Dennis
that
the Menace again."
they would rent
Yep.
the same movie for their kids, like a Matilda. And I'd crack up and I'd say, try something else. And they said, no, that's all they want to watch. They love it. For an hour and a half, they're totally absorbed.
Oh, you're
So,
not about to let somebody's child have a
So finally I said, here, keep it.
tantrum in the
Yeah, oh,
movie
yeah.
store because they're not getting Matilda for the 15th time in the
Right.
month.
That goes
I
back
actually,
to
I
the
gave away kitty tapes that they loved like that. Because it was easier to get a used copy somewhere else.
and that little thing.
They were customers for life.
Yes.
Really, I took care of the kids.
Yeah, that's happened to me. I think even with my dry cleaning spot. I've recently discovered that the place that I take my clothes to get dry cleaned is relatively more expensive than other places. And all it took was on the second visit there, I was like, I really need this stuff like tomorrow. And he was like, you need it tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, done. And ever since that one thing, and I was like, I'm never gonna go anywhere else.
It's worth the extra 25 cents that they charge per shirt.
Yeah, he'll flex. And so then I also try to return the favor. So when I go in there and I'm like, this is like whenever. Like this could be a 2-weeker. It's fine, like on your schedule. He's like, no, end of the week or whatever. But like, it's those little actions, those unnecessary but thoughtful and considerate of the fact that you're actually working with another person. Those are huge.
Yeah, and you're always trying to think of something to bring them in more than they even come in or get new customers.
Right.
If a movie came out like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I remember, I had my employees dress up in those costumes. I rented the costumes, and they were outside the store doing their karate stuff.
Yes.
And people would ride by, and the next thing you would see, they'd be pulling into the parking lot.
I've got to get you the picture so we can put it up here. There's a picture of me with 2 size and the Raphael, headband, and I got like the Ninja Turtle like elbow pads and knee pads, and I got this I'm gonna
That was me and my cousins with the Power Rangers when the Power Rangers movies came
absolutely.
out. Big fan.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Power Rangers was the best.
Yeah.
I do this with some of those classics with my kids. I took them through a huge Power Rangers
Sure.
never
The best.
when they were young, and I was like, and it was perfect. They loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Ooze, right? Oh,
When the
it's so
kids see-
nostalgic.
when the
I'm like
kids
right
see-
back in Blockbuster already. I'm like, I can smell the smells.
When the kids see the characters in costume, they're blown away, really. I had all 4 Ninja Turtle costumes. I rented for a week, and I had 4 employees outside the store. I said, just go outside and play. and we were on a Smithtown Boulevard. It was pretty heavily traveled. People would ride by there, honk the horn.
Yeah,
Really, it was
that's
funny.
huge.
Yeah, it
You just
was.
need that shredder to come in.
It's all about creating the experience. I mean, Erica, our director, right? So her dream has always been to open like an ice cream shop forever because of McNulty's in Miller Place. They did the same thing. They would have character days for
Yep.
parents to bring the kids to, and even me. I mean, I'm a mom. I'm looking for characters always.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, Bluey and Bingo are gonna be at another store somewhere.
We're
We're
there.
going.
That's right.
That's why we want to bring him to Sesame Place because he gets to see Elmo. It's the experience of
You're
everything.
right. You're right.
Yeah, when you can turn a normal event that you're gonna go to anyway.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're gonna go get ice cream this weekend. Like, if there's something.
If I see the Ninja
It's-
Turtles dancing outside of a video store, we're going.
If we
I'll
take
let-
this
We're going.
back to like kind of business basics, one of the first things that we always talk about once somebody has decided their business is, okay, well, what's your unique selling proposition?
Right.
What's your unique
What's
value
going to make you
proposition?
different from your competitors?
Exactly.
And you have to have sometimes a little niche that you have to have where people would come and be curious to see why you're different.
That's huge.
Really, it is.